made sure that we were in some extracurricular activities or the other. I was always into sports. I used to dance. I used to do a lot of things. So when we shifted to Bangalore, I used to be table tennis before that, and until we came here, I didn't really have any like I couldn't do continue playing table tennis. So my mom on the way back when she saw what she said, this is something. So she's like, okay, I'll bring him here. And I went there, actually, I had a lot of fun. And there were such nice people also. So we just started, that's where I picked up the sport.
Right, right. So your journey started off because your mom wanted you to really do something, and that's where you really landed up with.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So since the time you started, what made you fall in love with that sport that you are still continuing to do it after 12 years?
Hmm. Okay, so I think when, like, for athletes, they have like these moments that end up becoming very significant for them over the period of years that they compete for the NBA. Um, so for like that, just like that, for me, I have like this very significant moments. And I can just walk you through these moments. The first moment happened um, back in this was 2009. I was 10 and I just competed in my first nationals in food along with like 10 other people, and they didn't bother splitting us with the money because like I was already done. I got lucky that way because they like first national training to Rio Rocks. It was one of the fortunate few who got the opportunity. So they went to Azami, and that's when I got to climb Real Rock. And so my entire category, subject we were trying to do section. There was this one room there which was kind of pretty, it was really very scary. I didn't know. So that was on the other side. And I was looking in, and there were these um, a few of my friends, they were talking about how this route is really scary. And I'm like, it's fine. But when he was on the place here, let me look at it. And I went up. And once I reached this one segment, it seemed fine until that segment. Once I crossed that, suddenly it became very silent. I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't see anything. There was rock behind me. There was rock right, and then I was climbing on this. And then there was just like this. It was like a cliff. And it was just this cliff. And I looked down to see my belayer. Belayer is a person who is keeping you safe when you're climbing. So if you fall, then
Right.
the belayer keeps you in. So it kind of gives you a sense of security when you look for the belayer. But in my case, I
Mhm.
couldn't see the belayer. And this was where the hardest section of the route had to be to hold. And I realize why it was that scary, why it was so hard. Nobody else was doing it. But I went in there, oh, I'll do it. Let me just go on here. It was so scary. But then I was always looking for challenges and liked all these experiences. So I mustered up the courage and I made that jump. And and that I was like a really good experience with it. And that was one of my that was a very funny moment because I realized climbing is a place where I can see these new experiences that I'm looking for. That was the first big moment in climbing.
Right.
The second moment happened. This was when I won nationals for the first time. Um, a little bit of context. Before I won my national medal in juniors, I was very good in some juniors, but then I didn't compete because they kind of they took off the competitions for a while. They really want a medal, basically. So, um, but after 10th grade, during 10th grade, and then I started again in 11th grade. And,
Mhm.
my competitors who had seen me in substitutes, now they saw me, and I was still getting back and finding, so it was not that good. They saw me and they're like, "Oh, Loki, तुझमें ना वो आग नहीं बचा है अभी." And I was like, "What?" Like, no, guys, I'm the same person. I'm like, it seem that see that it's like then we have I got to go for this youth selection camp for Asian Asian selection. And in that trainer so badly, I just selected it, but I didn't do well at all, and I didn't lose in every event. In these guys
Right.
were they didn't take me seriously, right? And so before again, I don't know why I keep doing this. Then I was like, "Look, you, I this national road, I'm gonna beat both of you." And you think I would learn, but like, so I challenged
Right.
them, and then I trained very hard. Put in the time. I did everything I could. So for me, it became a huge part, and that was a decision I made that I was going to take that. I didn't actually have that faith in myself. But then
Mm-hmm.
this time I chose this is something I will do. I decided that I will do it. And, eventually the day came, nationals came. It was very hard. It was very scary. But at the end of the day, I actually won. It was brilliant. I chose to get two gold medals. I decided not to get two gold medals. I actually got it.
That's
That was,
amazing.
yeah,
That's
that's
really great to hear. Your storytelling abilities is really good. You can I think you can keep people hooked into your life. I mean, yeah, go on.
no, full disclaimer. This is like my first live, and I'm so glad it's with you guys. So, the context for the audience here, Lokesh and I we look like a long way back. We're childhood friends, and the entire PO team, we're like really close friends. All of us, we're all childhood friends. I'm so glad that this is my first live, and I'm doing it with you guys. So I have been this calm, and you know how I get excited and speak so fast. Like if it's too fast, it's like okay, it's not-
Yeah, exactly, and we are glad that we were able to get you on here, and everyone that is watching. Lokesh is also starting his content creation journey, where he's going to share a lot about not just his climbing journey, but also in general the nutrition and being what it's like being an athlete and what it really takes to be an athlete. So make sure you do follow his page. I'm not sure if any of you have seen, but we shared a story of with his reel where he's doing this insane jump on one of his routes. So do see that it put me in awe, and I was like, wow, how are you even doing that? So yeah, do check that out. But when you do talk about this sport, right, it seems so scary. Like, first of all, you are climbing on a structure that I guess isn't supposed to be climbable. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, because I mean a layman can't just go up on that. It's obviously professionals that are really able to go on top of that. And with regards to the safety as well, where you're there is one thread or maybe two threads that are basically keeping you safe, right? In case anything goes wrong. So how do you even deal with that? What goes on in your mind when you're really climbing and trying to stay safe, more importantly?
Okay, I'm going to split this into like two segments. Okay, first, it seems very scary. At least what I do is not that scary. So if you feel that me jumping there was not safe, it was actually very safe. It's not a cave, it's like a very strong rope. It can
Okay.
take very high load. Like not humans cannot pull that rope unless you wear it down. You need to be a little careful. There are a few things you do. So we do careful. As long as you take the necessary precautions, it's very safe. At least the path that I do. There are really cool people. They free solo stuff. They just don't have any equipment and they just climb. So that's like a one-time trip. If you feel game over. But what I do is very safe. Unless you make a mistake, you're not being careful.
Hmm.
Um, the structure in terms of it's very hard because the ones that I was climbing in the stories that I put up recently, but there are easy ones and there are hard ones. The person, the people in the area, they figure out which routes are harder, which routes are easier, and they just grade the route. So one would find if it's easy, then it comes down on the side of 5 or 4A. It would be a grade. And if it's a harder
Okay.
route, they would grade it lower. So even a beginner, even if you've never climbed before, there will be a route that you can climb and you can progress there. So I mean, if you see somebody doing some ridiculously hard thing and you decide, okay, I'm going to do that, that might happen. But eventually, if you get through this, you get.
Right. So now just going into the specifics of not just climbing, but like being an athlete in general, right? Especially in India, for a sport that is so unorthodox, right? Because we hear a lot, like, just take cricket for example, right? We hear a lot about the men's side of cricket getting a lot more opportunities or a lot more what do you say, exposure than the women's side itself, right? And that we are talking about a sport that is famous across the country. Now what happens to a sport like this, which is not as famous, or hardly, maybe it's hardly known, maybe a certain sect of people that know about it, right? So what is it like going into the sport? What sort of facilities are there right now, or how has it improved in the 12 years that you've been doing this?
Yeah, so it is a niche sport, and because it is a niche sport, there is very little support right now. Um, in India, the organization that's responsible for climbing is called Indian Mountaineering Foundation. And from what I've heard, they either have very low funds in general, or they are very focused on mountaineering, so they usually spend that much time on scientific climbing or sport climbing. Uh, so and that obviously raises a lot of problems for athletes as such because we only have one competition year round, and it's nationals. And I mean, you have zonals also. You have to qualify to get nationals, but that's just it's just that one competition that entire year. And there's nothing else. And they do other stuff. So they every year usually they select youth teams because we perform even a certain age group, and then after that the countries suddenly just get much stronger. We don't know how to improve at that same rate that the other countries do. So because of that, the government kind of has let like once you reach a certain age, they just don't they focus their view towards you, and they just look at focus on the younger generation, which is really disheartening to older athletes because not like there's nothing weird we're pursuing it, but then you just don't end up getting any support. Okay, but like they do until a certain age group, they do it, but it just doesn't seem enough to an athlete because okay, so if you're going to compare an Indian athlete,
Yeah, yeah. Go on. I can hear you.
it's
Is
fine.
there an issue? Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yeah, okay. So, well, sorry. Just,
You're talking comparing the athletes from Indian and
yeah. So if you compare an Indian athlete with, say, there's like a lot of difference in terms of how the exposure builds out with exposure. An Indian athlete will be very lucky if he or she gets to compete in even one competition because if you're after a certain age group, like I said, after the youth, you have to pay for everything yourself, which is ridiculous. Like we don't have to, the sports are unsustainable. It's
Hmm.
very hard for an athlete to make a living out of it. So, and you expect an athlete to go and compete, get exposure, and eventually maybe one day get a medal. But that's the first aspect of it. Then there is like other countries. They have a team. They have coaches. They have physiotherapists. They have sports nutritionists. And look at the level of things they're covering. They're covering so many
Hmm.
aspects. We go there and we have like a certain experience, and it just there with their the effort that they've put in, and they put in so much time. It's, I mean, and even if we do work hard, they end up with so many more aspects to be short one way or the other. So these kind of things, I don't know how an athlete is supposed to get these things. So there, I think government should help them out too. And
Hmm.
so, but then at the same time, they have done quite a bit. I believe at least in Karnataka, we have Ketna here, General Temia Academy of National, General Temia
Okay.
National Academy of Adventure and Sports. So they have actually rewarded, they given monetary benefits for national athletes. So say you
Hmm.
get a national medal, and you actually get the reward for that. But even that, first of all, the national medal itself is very low. Like you don't get any money. You get like 5 or 10 for each one comp. Get it? And it's like the gold medal.
Right.
You get 10K, and that is so
Uh,
less. Yeah, and
yeah.
how are you supposed to sustain yourself with that? And they came back here, and then they also had given, which is pretty much the same amount. And it's not like it's not enough. It's just not enough. It feels, I mean, at least from my perspective, it just doesn't feel enough. But they do stuff. They take care of us in a certain way. So recently, they have come up with this vaccination drive for any national or international athletes. Get them, that way at least it shows that they took care of us and they're trying on their end. But I just think that we probably need to get better solutions if you want to get to a higher stage. Um,
Right.
yeah, that's it.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think the popularity of the sport also depends like on how well it is pushed. Obviously, that's what matters, right? Like I think one example that comes to my mind, and it's not really an Indian example. I think more of an international example where we talk about something like the UFC. I'm sure you would have heard of the UFC, right? So UFC. I mean is pretty huge right now, right? But at a point, as a few years back, it wasn't as popular as it is right now. But then the athletes that have come into the sport have really pushed towards making it what it is right now. Obviously, there are other stuff behind it, but then I think athletes also can play a very, very important role. And that is where, people like you come into the picture through your creation of this content, you're basically promoting the sport to the people that don't know about it.
That was actually the idea behind it. So I thought one day, this will come in, I'll explain it in detail later. But the idea is that if, since there is not much, like, as an lending athlete, I'm not going to get any money out of it. But there is a way to, I can establish a brand, and then I can use the brand to put sponsorships, and then I can at least make it to like a big stage. That's something possible with, with a brand like you suggested. Like that's where I think you can do from therein. So that's one thing that I'm really working towards.
Right, right. So
And
now,
sorry,
what?
on the front of how sports get. Sorry, did I keep moving up? But
That's okay. That's okay.
on the front of gaining popularity, sport climbing is now part of the Olympics. So that's a
Oh,
very
okay.
big step. So in Tokyo 2020, they're going to be giving the debut. And I think even in Paris 2024, it's going to be on the list. So I think that way it will gain a lot of popularity. And maybe we will get a thing as well with that.
Okay, is climbing recently into the Olympics, or has it been there since
No, so Tokyo
recently?
2020 is where it's going to be. For the first time, they're going to
This
have
is
it.
the first time.
Yeah, first time.
That's a, that's amazing. That's amazing. What about the Indian team?
Okay. So the way they're conducting the selections, it's not you have to be the top 20 since it's a debut sport. They're only taking like a certain number of seats. The world ranking. Mm, They'll
Okay.
take the top 20 from the world, and no Indian has gone above, I would say, maybe the round 40. If we've never been qualified to the next round. So no Indian could make it to the Olympics as of we don't know if any. I mean, right now Tokyo 20 has already been decided. 24 is, it might be possible, and I think that's what a lot of
Okay.
athletes like me are gunning for. So we'll see about that. But on the front, there was one athlete in India who got to youth Olympics. So he
Mhm.
played well in the Asian Games, and then fortunately things worked out, and then he was selected for the Youth Olympics as well. But you can only be selected for the Olympics if you're in the top ranking.
Okay, okay, understood, understood. So now I wanna go back a little and understand what your specific journey has been like in this sport, right? Because like you said, we have known each other for a very long time, and I have seen a bit of the hardships that you have gone through, but I don't really know what the actual reality was, right? So what was it like really for you to get into this sport, especially knowing that that there it's not popular, there is not much resources into the sport itself, and in terms of your your schooling and stuff like that. So how has it worked out for you in this journey itself?
Okay, so um, it was very hard. It was a very rough journey, I would say, but it's getting better. And now I see, like, I'm at a place now where um, the goal doesn't seem unrealistic anymore, which is the big thing. Now it just seems hard. It's way better than unrealistic. How it started off was, so see, during my 11th and 12th, until then I was actually pursuing very mainstream things. I was trying to go into architecture, and that's what my mom was also very happy. But then at some point, climbing just kind of took over, and I really wanted to like climbing, and I understood that it's not very the field is not monetizable. But I was willing to explore and see how I could go about it because I knew that there would be something we could do to make it work. But my family wasn't really willing to explore it, and they kind of turned their back on me for this. Um, I had to kind of fend for myself and figure things out. And that kind of made it even harder and reflected my time performance also for a while. So, and it took a while to get things set up. So,
Mm-hmm.
what happened after that was I started working and I started coaching other people. We tried a lot of things. We first tried work as an adventure, outdoor educator, which I didn't really.
This is when this
This was
is when what
this was like during the period of so after my 11th and after my 12th, I took the year off because I wanted to figure
okay.
out how to get into this. And that's when I did a lot of internships, and I was seeing how I can make things work. And my parents were that they're not going to support me, and that if I with this, then I'll have to do it by myself, which I understand. So I mean, at that point, I was not okay, but for me, climbing meant so much to me that I decided to go ahead anyway, and I stuck with it. But it was very hard to make any money out of it. There was no opportunity at that point. And I'm summarizing everything in a single sentence. Eventually, I ended up figuring out how I could make it work. But it's, just being an athlete, just being an athlete doesn't give you anything. What I do is I coach other people. And,
Mhm.
and, and then I save up, and then I go and actually I go and compete. That's how it is right now. We coach the youth, we coach recreational athletes. We don't coach the competitors.
Right. I remember this one time when we were just hanging out, and I think it was at the time of your it was either at a time when you were training for something or you were in between of one of your competitions. I'm not sure of the specifics, but you for some reason you had to get some calories in, or you had to get your nutrition in and you weren't able to do that at home because of something. You had to cook or something like that, and you weren't able to. So I remember this one time you just went to a shop, bought a piece of cake which had 7 grams of protein, just so you could get that amount of protein, and
I
and
think
which was very
I think
uh,
that's more connect. So I mean, yeah, I guess that at that sense, whatever I could, I guess I did. I think having that cake would have been better than not having anything because I didn't end up eating anything that day. So, but that's not really the best option. I would say. No.
yeah, that was pretty funny to me. But then, yeah, you were so fit that I guess that piece of cake didn't really matter, just so you could get that 7 grams of protein. But then now, I really want to get into the specifics, a little bit of the specific of the sport itself. What how is climbing really different from mountaineering? How does a general audience differentiate between those two?
Okay, so I would actually explain it differently. Climbing is a very broad term. I think climbing encompasses mountaineering and a lot of other activities. Um, as mountaineering, as the name says, mountaineering is when you climb mountains. Rock climbing is what I do, and rock climbing is when you climb rocks. There's also a competitive side to it, which is climbing. It's where the
Okay.
competitions happen. So,
Hmm.
in rock climbing, we have three ranks. Speed, speed, and posing. So,
Right.
in a brief way, that's the difference between this.
Right. So, what the essence of climbing itself, right? What does it really take? Is it different from the like? Of course, the training matters, and the training methods are different for each sport of its own. But then, what is different about climbing? What does, say, a person who wants to be a climber, who wants to pursue climbing as a profession or wants to get into the sport, what is it that they need to really be a climber? Uh, is it an everyday training thing where you need to be able to train every day for the next 6 months to be even able to do one round of, say, climbing a real rock, right? I'm not sure if I'm able to really put out the question in the right manner, but
Yeah, I think I got it. So you don't actually have to be extremely fit to start climbing. There is a relatively higher. I feel that there is a relatively higher requirement than other activities. Um, as in, you have to be under the normal range or slightly overweight, then that's okay. But I mean, even otherwise, there are actually things you could do to to cater to other populations. But it's usually there is no requirement as such. You don't have to be fit to climb. Like I said, there are different grades and there are different ways you can progress in the sport. So you could, even if you're not fit, you could like take up the sport and then become fit. So that is an
right.
option. Yeah. Did I answer everything? I think I missed out something.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
what kind of climbing is actually a full body workout. It's not just arms. I mean, I post up things where I'm just like pulling myself because it looks fancy, but then you really need a lot of things. It's upper body, it's lower body, it's core, and everything has to work together for you to actually make your way up. So,
Mm. Right. So now, as a sport, what do you see climbing, the future of climbing as? Like, when you are yourself in this journey right now, do you think you are going to have a scope where you are able to take this up? Like, I mean, of course you're already doing it, but like, may just rely on this as your profession itself of just being a climber, or do you think it's a long way ahead?
So I don't know about that. And at a certain point in my life, I had to kind of come to terms with the fact that that will never be the case. And so what I have is I have like different expectations. Like if I do make it as an athlete, and if I am able to find myself, if I do get sponsorship, then I will go on all of those things, all the trips, and I will compete and stuff. If that doesn't happen, I have another plan where I will still climb, of course, but um, I might not make money out of climbing as an athlete. I will continue my journey
Hmm.
as a coach. Once I'm done with my journey as an athlete, I will continue my journey as a coach. Even after my journey as an athlete, in the like, say I do get supported and I do have support, I can go and compete on world
Hmm.
stage. Then even if I will end up, I do want to help the next generation, so that they don't have to find things as I mean, even I would say that even the previous generations didn't have a lot of facilities, and they didn't even have as many facilities that we had. Like climbing is pretty right now as compared to what it used to be before, and we at least started off having climbing facilities. My
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
my coaches, their generation didn't really have a wall. They put together the first wall. So it has progressed a
Okay.
long way. It's progressed from a place where there was a single facility to a place where they hosted the World Cup. So it has hosted
Oh,
two World
okay.
Cups, which is a big deal. So it has come a long way. And but I want to make sure it's still. I don't know if it's enough. I'm going to try my best to get to to make my dreams come true. But if if I don't get that, then there are other ways that I will continue the sport. And I want to make sure that the next generation doesn't have to go through, you know, the same efforts that we have to put in just to get to a stage where they can compete.
Right, right. Of course, and your experience that you have had 12 years, and you're what, 23, 24 right now. So I mean, you do have, I think, a few more years of 23. So yeah, you do have a few more years of your own athletic life left, and beyond that, training as well, right? So those years of experience that you have will definitely be of a lot of use for the future generation. So I think that is of course something that you really can be a part of, which maybe you, if you are not by the time you finish, maybe the sport hasn't reached that level, but then you could be the one who is taking the other players, the younger players, into that level. So good luck for that, and I'm really rooting for you and looking forward to what the future holds for you.
Thank you so much.
So now, my last question for you, for the people that are watching, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that are watching, are people that are into climbing from your audience, who want to understand your journey, right? So what would you like to tell those people who are into the sport, or any other sport which is not the orthodox type, or not the mainstream sports, right? What would you like to tell them, or give out a message to those people who want to make it in those sports?
I think speaking from personal experience, I kind of want every athlete who's pursuing something in a niche sport, any goal into a niche sport, if you're pursuing something like that, just know that you're not alone, and that you will have a lot of hardships, but then at least someone like me, I know for a fact that my life is way better with climbing and than without climbing. And now that I know that, I don't quit anymore. So I think that it's very important to keep progressing and just keep at it. So, one more thing. I was going to say something. Sorry, just slipped my mind. So anytime I find things really difficult, I always like. I mean, at different stages of my life, I have like different quotes that kind of help me. At one point in my life, I had this one quote by he said, "Whether you think you can do it or whether you think you can't, you're right." And I really like that quote. But then the quote that helps me right now is things are hard and I want to kind of quit, I tell myself, yeah, you can quit anytime you want. Because,
Hmm.
like, at this point in my life, I'm actually come to a stage where I can I make enough out of climbing to sustain myself. So I don't need to go for the biggest goals that I have. I can just, if I choose to be, I can just be complacent with the lifestyle I have now. But then every time I think that I can quit anything in my life, it's me. And I know that that frustration is something that I'm given to myself. So anytime it gets hard for me, I just think, okay, you can quit if you want. And then I get so frustrated. I'm like, okay, fine. But I have something to do. I know I can get there. And I will continue. pretty much doing.
Right. That's amazing, Lokesh. Thank you so much for doing this. I think that was the last set of sort of questions that I had for you, and there is a lot of value that could be taken from this conversation that we've had for the audience that is watching, and of course we are. I'm like I said, I'm really rooting for you and looking forward to seeing you how big you can get in this sport itself. Like for the audience that is watching, like this slide doesn't really summarize the hardships that Lokesh has had to go through for this journey in this sport itself, right? Because in these 12 years that he's had to go through a lot, and I've seen that dedication on first hand, right? Where during his school times, during his college times, whenever he had to pursue the sport, go for competitions, I've seen the effort that he had to make to be able to go there. So there is a lot to learn from him, and so please make sure that you follow him on Instagram. He'll be sharing a lot of his journey as well. And thank you so much, Lokesh, for doing this.
No, thank you, man. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye.